Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kira Dent, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of my Dental A Team family. I seriously love doing this podcast. I thought I was going to hate it, and I love it. I love it so much because I get to connect with you. I get to hear how this podcast is helping you and your practice be better. So if you have loved this podcast and you are willing to share, I would greatly appreciate if you'll share with your friends, if you'll leave us a review, if you'll give us 5 stars, anything you can do. Just like you guys grow your practices, we're trying to grow this podcast to positively impact the world of dental. This is how we get to grow our Dental A Team family. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. We're your hosts, Kira Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental A Team podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
2 perspectives, 1 mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. Alrighty, guys, it is our Thursday, Monday morning mashup. What does this mean for all of you that are just joining us? That means our episode today is going to be one of those episodes that you can share with your team to use for your team meeting. We made these specific for you so that way those meetings are hard to come up with. Whether you have your meetings on Monday mornings, Tuesday mornings, Wednesday mornings, I don't really care. But these are a topic for you and your team to jump in together, share with one another this podcast, and make your meetings easier, more effective, and productive. All right, let's get started with our Monday morning mashup. Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kira Dent, and you guys, I have told you about this person, and I am so excited she is on the podcast. This is one of my really good friends. We met, and it was that instant, connecting, and you just know you want to be friends with this person. Plus, she's super rad. She is a dentist, and she also has one of the biggest social media followings I have ever seen. So I am beyond excited to have Desiree Yazdan on the podcast. Desiree, how are you today?
I am so good, and I'm so excited to be here and really looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. We met at the Dental Nachos event with Paul Goodman, and you spoke about social media. And you guys, I go to a lot of dental conferences, and I literally sat there during your presentation taking frantic notes of everything because you gave so much information. So I am excited to have you on here today.
Good. I'm excited. I'm going to share that and some more. And anytime you need anything, you can always reach out to me. So, and I have the PowerPoint presentation. So if you want that, you didn't have to take frantic notes. I can email that to you too.
Perfect. And you guys, this is really who she is. She is the nicest person I've ever met, and she will give you all of her info. So thank you so much. But I know you, I heard your story, but I feel for all of our Dental A Team listeners, this is teams, this is doctors. You guys, she is a rad doctor. Like you should just hear her, you're going to hear her story because it's so powerful. So if you don't mind kind of walking us through how you got to this point, and so that way people kind of know a little bit more.
Okay. So long time ago, I knew I wanted to do cosmetic dentistry and work in a really high-end office and all this stuff. So when I graduated dental school, of course, I started working in really high-end offices that I could find that would give me a job. And eventually, I ended up buying into a practice about a year after dental school. Now, something that I learned along the way is you really don't know anything about business when you first graduate. And but I thought I had hired all the right people. The office was extremely busy. I was an associate there for a short period of time. So I felt like I was seeing the patients come and go. There were so many new patients. There was so much production. And so I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of a no-brainer. I want my own practice. I understand this person has been practicing for a long time and they kind of want to settle down a little bit. I get it. So it just made sense at the time, and I hired all the right people. So I thought, and so shortly after the buy-in, my partner no longer was practicing dentistry, and she kind of took off while I was actually out of town on my honeymoon.
Perfect. So happy wedding. Happy wedding. Here you go.
Exactly. So I literally lost my business overnight because it was the way that she left was extremely dramatic. Like nobody knew about it. It was a horrible thing. And so I went from having like a really, really high producing office to having no patients, nobody. And of course I had staff that depended on me for a paycheck. I had rent to pay. And so I had a choice. I could either basically, close up shop, start working for someone else again, or I could like try to make it work. And I don't know, but I feel like us in the healthcare industry, like going through all this schooling and all this stuff, we're kind of survivors, like we get really down in the trenches and we work really hard and we just make it work however we can. So that's what I did. And that's when I started using social media because I didn't have a way to market myself. I didn't have a budget to market my business. So I started doing it on social media.
Your budget was literally pay the paycheck, like pay the payroll, pay the rent. Like I have nothing else.
Like if I didn't take home money, but I was able to like pay the rent and pay my staff, I was like, okay, I've survived like this month. Like, can I keep my door open next month type of thing? Mm-hmm. So, and I knew I was really good at what I did. Like I really loved it. And I knew that like my patients were always happy. I was happy. I loved it. So I was like, I don't really want to give it up. And so I was like, I've got to make this work. So I turned to social media and I really made it work for me. So,
and I love when you talked about this in Philly, you said, I turned to social media because it was something free that I could do that was free marketing. And I love that you pointed that out because so often we think we have to go spend hundreds of dollars on marketing, but yet you buckled down. You said, I'm going to do this. I'll find the way. You got scrappy. And literally social media helped you so much. So it was something free that you could do in a moment of there were no other resources. So the resource is myself.
Exactly. And you know what? To this day, now I can have a bigger marketing budget, but to this day, I still use my social media because it's been working, knock on wood. I mean, I don't ever want it to stop working, but honestly, I feel like if I could do it, anybody can do it because I'm not like some crazy genius. I'm just very dedicated to it. So if you're dedicated to it and you want to make it work for you, it's going to work. You just have to take all the right steps, which we'll get into.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love it because you literally like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So you come back to this practice, you decide social media is going to be what I'll do. Like, where did you even start? Because I think a lot of us don't even know where to start or how to start. We know social media can help us. So what would kind of be the way you'd navigate through this from everything you've learned? You've learned so much and gosh, you're just darn good at what you do.
So how I started then, not knowing anything, just like being like, okay, this is all I can do is a lot different than how I would start now.
Okay. Tell us what you do now. Let's learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. So, there's a few things you have to know about social media. Let's start with the basics. One is if you want it to work for you, you have to be consistent. So you have to consistently put out valuable information. And being a dentist and in the dentist world, like you have to think of who's your end person that you're trying to attract into your office. So I call that person your ideal patient. So who is that person? So you have to put out content to attract that person. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about the ideal patient in a second, but you basically want to like educate and inspire them, make them feel something with the way that you're posting. Because if you're just posting, for example, like here I am at the beach and here I am, I'm going on vacation. Nobody really cares like what you're doing. But if you're posting things about like, hey, this patient bit into an apple and broke their tooth and here I am fixing it, they're going to be so much more like, hey, that happened to me. Hey, let me see. Oh my God, the end result is so good, or, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that broke my tooth on a granola bar, so things like that, putting out like stories that people can relate to and becoming relatable. The thing about social media is you have to get people to know, like, and trust you. And as dentists, we're not really selling like a $5 lip gloss that who cares if you wasted your $5, like it was just $5, you're selling basically treatment that's hundreds or thousands of dollars. So you have to get people to really know you and like you. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you're showing up consistently. So again, you can't post like 5 photos in like 3 days and then disappear for 3 weeks and then come back again and then post like 15 photos and then disappear. Like, you have to be using it regularly, almost every day, or like 5 times a week, and being consistent. Now, when I say that, but you don't have to spend all day on your phone. You don't have to. It sounds like, oh, well, you have to use it all the time for it to work. You just have to show up regularly and make it part of your routine, and spend 15 minutes a day on it, not all day. And as you figure it out, as you keep posting content, you'll figure out what your voice is. You'll start to figure out what actually resonates with you as like writing and also getting people in. So, and you'll see what works too, because you'll have patients that come in your office and they'll literally hold up a post that you have and say, oh, I'm only here because I saw this and this is my exact story, or this is exactly how I feel. And you're like, okay, I nailed it. Like, that works, so you'll start figuring those things out.
And you guys, let me just quantify her right now. If you pull up her Instagram, Dr. Yazdan, she has 135,000 followers. Yep, you heard that right. 135,000 followers. So she's got this dialed in. And when you scroll through her page, there's definitely a feel to your page. And I want you to go into more. I'm not going to jump the gun, because when you talked about Starbucks and the feel and all that resonated with me so much. So basically what I'm gathering right now is posting, showing up every single day, being consistent, or not even every single day, but being consistent. I think we can tie that into dentistry where, we tell our patients you need to brush and floss every day. You can't just floss 7 times on Sunday and call it good for the week. You have to consistently do it.
That is like the best analogy ever. I think I'm going to steal that from you and start using it.
Go for it. You're more than welcome to. That was when you said that. I thought, well, we can't just floss, 7 times on Sunday and say I'm good for the week. You have to show up every single day to get the results you're looking for.
And you don't have to floss all day every day. You
No.
do it for that 2 or 3 minutes or however long it takes you, the 1 minute it takes you, and you're good.
Exactly. So, okay. So you say show up, post, make sure that we're showing up consistently, whatever that pattern is. You guys know the podcast, it's released every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hopefully you guys have picked up the pattern. Every so often I'll like throw a curveball and it's going to come on Monday or Friday. But typically, and I purposely do that, so you guys have a consistent pattern to follow as well. Showing up, it's something you can count on. It's a routine that you can be a part of.
Exactly. And also, it becomes like fun for you too. And honestly, when you're marketing your business for free and you're actually getting paid for it, in the sense that you're getting patients coming into your office and paying you for treatment, and like really you're attracting. So here's the thing about your ideal patient. You attract the type of person you want to work with. All of a sudden you love your business even more. It's more fun for you. And then it's so worth it, because free marketing to me, we know as dentists, our overhead already is so high. So free marketing any day of the week, yes, I will take it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've dialed this in. You have 135,000 followers, and you also impressed me at the Philly event where you said you have clients that are flying in from all over the world. So it's not just your location in California. I'm sure a lot of them come from there, but you've even been able to go globally where people will literally fly in, see you. You're doing the type of dentistry you want to do. You built this business to, hey, I'm attracting these high-end clients that want cosmetic dentistry. You're doing the dentistry you want to do, and you attribute that success to A, you're a great dentist, but B, you've got this awesome social media that's going on. So super impressive.
Like, obviously you have to have the dentistry behind it or the skills behind it. But what gets them in the door is not them being in my office seeing what I do. What gets them in the door is them seeing what I do through social media, or them, seeing my Instagram or Facebook, mostly Instagram. I'm mostly active there. And then coming in from that. But I do want to say, because I know you mentioned like, oh, you have 135,000 followers, which is great. I've worked really hard to like really build that, but you don't have to have high numbers to be successful on social media. You just need to have the right followers. So if you have a local practice, whatever city or state you're in, if you have 1,000 people following you, 1,000 people compared to like people who have millions of people doesn't seem like a lot. But if you think to yourself, well, if I have to invite those 1,000 people or 500 people to my house tonight for dinner, all of a sudden that's a really big number of people.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Right. And if you have 500 or 1,000 people that want to come and see what your business is all about, and they're engaging with your account and they love everything you're posting, those 500 or 1,000 people, or even 200 people, they will have a friend or family member that they can refer to you. They will come in themselves. They'll have a spouse or maybe a child. You know what I mean? So there's always somebody, like, you don't have to have this huge number, because anyone that comes from there can also send you a referral of a patient. And that just means more business growth.
Totally. That's a good point. I like how you quantified, 135,000 people in my house feels really scary, but also 500 people in my house or even 200 people in my house feels like, okay, that's a good,
right.
a good analogy.
Like if I said, hey, by the way, in about 3 hours, there's 200 people coming over, you'd be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I can't feed 200 people,
It looks like we're going to Wendy's. Head on to the drive-thru.
So it's easy to compare yourself to people like who have been on social media for years and years and years and have really built their pages up. And it's easy to be like, oh, this person has so many followers, it's never going to work for me. When I started my Instagram account, there was other big dental accounts. And had I sat back and thought to myself, oh, you know what, I'm too late on this train, it's never going to work for me, I probably wouldn't have been able to maintain my business. I probably would have had to shut the doors and go work for somebody for, I don't know how long, forever maybe. So my point is, don't just think like, oh my God, it's never going to work for me. I can't show up 7 days a week. It takes too much time. And there's already big accounts out there. I can't compete with them. It should be more like, you know what? I want my business to grow. I'm not going to spend all day on my phone, but I'm going to dedicate a little bit of time, 5 or 6 days a week, to making this work for me. And it doesn't matter. I'm going to start with 50 followers and I'm going to grow to 100 and I'm going to go to 200 and then 400. And then 1,000, and then you just go up from there.
I like that. That's a good point. Thank you for that, because they say, and I'm sure you're a fantastic dentist. I know you are, but I was just listening to Tony Robbins. I'm like putting massive plugs for that man right now, but
I love him.
I do too. I think he's fantastic.
Who doesn't?
But he said, it's not the products that are the best products. It's the best marketed products that win. And so just because you're late to the game, you have to remember, there's really no timeline of are you on time or off. It doesn't really matter. Bottom line is everyone's going to attract different people. And so who are you attracting? I know my podcast is not for everyone, but I know there's a lot of people that are like-minded with me that resonate with what I'm giving out. Same thing with Desiree. People resonate with you. It's not going to be everyone. And that's where I think you dive into really figuring out who you're trying to attract. So it's not just trying to attract anyone and everyone, but really the person that you're looking for, because we all speak to different people.
Right. We should actually talk about that, because you probably do this for your podcast as well. So you have like an ideal person that you're attracting to your podcast. You should have the same thing for your dental business, or whatever patient you want to treat. Even if you don't have a business, you should start thinking about the type of procedures you want to do and the type of patients you want to see. Is it somebody in their 20s or is it somebody in their 50s? Because you're going to market, even if it's the same procedure, you're going to market to a 20-year-old much differently than you're going to market to a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old. So you have to really nail down, like, who is this person? What is it, male or female? What kind of car do they drive? How much money do they make? How do they spend their free time? Do they have children? Are they married? And what do they like to eat on Sunday night for dinner? Like, you just have to create this ideal patient in your head and start creating your content for that person. Sometimes you might think like, oh, I don't really know what to say. I ran out of content. I don't know but if you know who your ideal patient is, you know everything of what to say all the time. Because that person becomes like, and I have an ideal patient, and I've actually named her. I named her Olivia. So for me, it's like every time I'm going to post, I'm like, oh, would Olivia like this? Yes. And I've had my brother or like family members say like, why are you posting that? Like, people don't want to say that. But guess what? My brother and some of my close family members, they're not my ideal patient. They're my family members. I love them. They're not my ideal patient. And so it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't work for you, but I know Olivia loves what I'm posting. And that's all that matters because that's who I'm trying to attract.
And when you talked about this at the event, you literally walked down. Olivia, she goes to Starbucks. She orders this drink. She takes her kids to this location. Like it was, I literally felt I had a picture of exactly who Olivia is, where she lives, what she does, what she thinks, all these people, because you created this person that was tangible without being tangible. I literally knew exactly who you were writing to.
Right. And it becomes so clear and obvious. And then it becomes easier to create the content. And so if you're just hearing this for the first time and you haven't really thought about it, you can always create like somebody and then that person can evolve over time. Like I didn't know that Olivia loved Lululemon from day one, that just kind of grew into her. And I was like, oh, she shops at Lululemon. She likes to wear Lululemon. This is blah, 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 blah. She's married. She has 2 kids. She drives a white Range Rover. She lives in Newport Beach. All things that make sense for my business and literally the type of person I want to attract. And I have to say that even though you're marketing to that one specific person, you're still going to get other people. Just because Olivia is female doesn't mean that I don't also get men into my office for treatment. They still come. So you are attracting and repelling people in a sense, but you're still attracting a bigger group than what you are actually marketing to, if that makes sense.
Totally. It really does. And I love this idea so much because this morning I actually did a client call, so a consult. And as I was on the call with them, I realized what they were asking me for was not what I enjoyed doing for consulting. It did not fit. But on the call, I was starting to think, well, could I make myself work? Could I make this fit in? And I realized I actually thought about you, Desiree, and I thought, is this what I want to be doing? Is this speaking? And does this fit into the wheelhouse of what I want to be doing? Because I think so often one of the problems is we try to market to be all things to all people. Therefore, we are nothing to nobody. Because we're just this buckshot spray. And I've started to realize even with myself, I've started to hone in what type of consulting do we do? What type of training do we do? I don't want to be everything to everyone because that's not a sustainable model and it's not easy to market and it doesn't attract people because you're so scattered. It's not that very directed like you were saying. And I love that you said we're attracting and repelling people all day long because for myself, so often I'm like, no, just attract everyone. But the bottom line is we don't want everyone.
Right. And that's kind of like our go-to thing is like, no, we need everyone. We want everyone's business. We want everyone to be our patient, or I want to consult everybody. I can help everybody. Right.
Right.
But then it's like, but you really can't. Like, I don't know, exactly what your figures are for your business, what you charge. But let's say you just charge $5,000 for easy math. But let's say I'm a client who can only pay you $500. Well, you don't want me as your client.
Right.
And I'm like, just because you can help me doesn't mean you actually want me there. Or what if I have completely different values than what you're trying to like teach me I need to have? And I'm like, oh, that's never going to work for me. Well, then I'm not the right client for you because we don't see eye to eye.
Right.
So it's the same thing with patients. Like you might have a patient that comes in and they want full mouth reconstruction, but or whatever, maybe they need 3 root canals, but they don't believe in root canals. So that's not your ideal patient. Even though you've sat there, you've explained it to them, you've said, this is why you need this. You have an infection, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. But they don't want that. Okay. They don't believe in root canals. They feel like it can cause some of cancer in their body. I've heard this before. That's what I'm saying.
This is a real thing. Is this a pain point, Desiree? Should we talk into this?
No, but I'm just saying, I think there was that documentary called The Root Cause.
Yes.
And, so I've had to patients have asked me like, oh my God, I have a root canal. Is something going to happen to me? And it's like, no, if you needed it and you had an infection, you needed the root canal. That's how you treat it. Right. But anyway, that's our root canal 101 for you guys. Yes. Root canals are good. Yeah. So in those cases, that's not an ideal patient or somebody who, if you're like, okay, well, you actually need all these things. And then that person is like, well, I don't want to do that. I just want to do the last thing. And you're like, well, you can't get to the last thing unless you do these 4 things first because they're more important and we're like building, so you get what I'm saying. You just
Sure.
have to you want to attract the type of person that you're meant to work with, have the same values for. And that all comes down to who you're talking to.
Yes. And so, okay, we've got show up consistently, build your Olivia. I'm going to call it Olivia, like build your Olivia. Most people call it an avatar, but we're calling it an Olivia today. But I think that ties into, you also gave some great points about the profile, because I think this ties into who you're talking to with your profile. And I did not even think about this until you said it about the profile of what we're putting out there, just with those simple words.
So when somebody lands on your account, the first thing they see is your profile and they read it. So if right away they don't understand what it is that you do, they're going to be gone, right? So if you land on, let's say I was a dog walker, because I love dogs. So
this is your second business.
This is like my second business when I retire from dentistry is going to be walking dogs. So let's
good
say
plans.
in 20 plus years from now or whatever, I decide to be a dog walker and I create an Instagram account. If I have things written in there like dog lover, dog educator, dog inspirer, that's not going to attract, everyone's going to be like, okay, this person really likes dogs, but they're not going to really understand that I'm like a dog walker. But if my profile says something like, I'll train your old dog how to do new tricks, or dog walking while you're at work, or I walk your dog while you're at work, you know exactly what I do. Right? It's very descriptive.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be in such simple terms. I was kind of telling you a little bit earlier, my sister-in-law started an Instagram account. So she's messaging me all the time. And, I keep telling her, your bio doesn't even make sense. I don't understand what you're writing on your bio. And she's like, well, and she's explaining it to me, and she has all this stuff about inspiring and educating and making people feel better and this and that. And it's well, that's great, but how? How are you serving somebody? What is it that you're it just has to be in such simple terms. I'm a dog walker, or I'm a cosmetic dentist. You know what I mean? So simple that anybody can understand it.
And I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate something that should be simple. We want to sound good, which I agree. You should try and sound good. But if in sounding good, sounding really fancy, we miss the mark of who we are, that fancy verbiage completely cost us a potential client, or completely lost us the person that could be the ideal patient. Because showing up, you guys, literally, it's just like when we show up to look on Google or we look on Yelp, the first thing we do is read the reviews. I feel a profile is kind of who you are, what you do. Is this what I want to look into, or do I want to move on? Because we all quickly move and we're making these fast decisions left and right all day long. If it's not easy for you to figure out what you do, why stay on that page?
Exactly. And so I always say it's kind of like an elevator pitch, because you just have a certain amount of time while you can still grab that person's attention. So I say maybe 8 to 10 seconds, right? Somebody lands on your page. So if you and I were in an elevator and I said, hey, what do you do? I want to know exactly what it is that you do in those 10 seconds. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep scrolling on your page, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't, and maybe I'm not the right person for you, but if I am, and you're not explaining what you do to me very well, then you just lost me.
Right.
So if you got in an elevator with me and somebody said, hey, what is it that you do? I'm a cosmetic dentist and I help healthcare professionals grow their businesses using social media. Very clear cut. Okay,
I know what you do.
Right. So if I was to ask you, what is it that you do? Tell me what it is that you do.
We do dental consulting for teams, and we do it right.
Exactly. So if I'm a dentist, which I am, and you and I were in an elevator, and I said, oh, that's cool. Where are you going? What do you do? And you said, I'm a dental consulting, and I help you grow your business and the best way possible. And I might think to myself, oh my God, I need her in my life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's exactly how it should be. So simple, it's not very fancy, and it doesn't have to be fancy. The less fancy, the better.
I love that. So steps for you guys right now. 1, are you showing up every single day? 2, when you're showing up, do you know who you're even writing to? Are you writing to everybody, or are you focusing? Do you have your Olivia? And 3, what does your profile say? When someone lands on that, is it so simple that anybody of any walk of life at any point in time would know without asking any questions who you are, what you do, and what your focus is? And sure, if you want to be a general dentist, guess what? You're going to attract a lot of different people, general dentist. If you want to focus in on implants, make it so it's focused on implants, cosmetic dentistry, whatever it is. They say find your niche, or like what you are really trying to bring in. Go for that. So it's so simple at any point in time, anyone will know, and get rid of the fluff, right? Just clean that out.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, I do general dentistry, obviously, but I love the cosmetic aspect of it. And I feel like that's where I really excel. So that's what I mostly market. So for me, it's like, okay, it makes it obvious. For somebody else, it might be, well, I work with kids really well, or I'm a pediatric dentist. So, they market that part of their business, like how well they work with kids, and they show examples and they're posting about it, and they have stories of how, a kid came in really scared, or maybe the mom was really scared because their child was so young, but because of their experience, they had such a good experience, now they're so excited to go to the dentist, so just inspiring people with the content. But if you don't know who you're writing to, then everything kind of falls flat.
I like that so much. So at the beginning of our podcast, you said, well, as I said, take us in from start to finish, what you did, how you got here. And you said there were a lot of things that if I were to go back, I wouldn't have done. So what are some of those things that now that you are where you are, that you would totally caution or say, steer clear of this? I wish if I could go back in time, tell myself at that point in time, what would that advice be for that person?
You mean business-wise or social media-wise?
Either one. You take whichever role you want.
Social media-wise, I feel like for me, I feel like I did things right. It just took me a long time to figure out my voice and to figure out exactly what would bring people in. And I also wanted to make sure that I never wasted somebody's time, because if I was posting, for example, that I'm going to the beach with my husband, like nobody really cares. And it's like, oh, haha, look, it's Monday and I'm going to the beach while you're at work on Monday. Like nobody wants to see that. But if instead I'm like, well, I'm on the way to the beach, but here I'm taking a bottle of water. It's really important to stay hydrated. It's good for your teeth because X, Y, and Z. And by the way, I'm also taking some fruit and blah, 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 blah. Fruit is really good because it's high in vitamin C. So it's good for your gum tissue. And if I'm kind of like educating people, I think that's the best way to do it, because then people learn something. They're like, oh, I learned something new, or hey, that wasn't a waste of my 15 seconds that I looked at this.
And I think it sticks more too, because we just see posts all day long that are just the fluff, the haha, like cool, but it didn't stick. Like, nothing pushed me forward.
So those things were good. And then once I realized like what actually brought people in, and I started honing in on that, I think I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was testing out everything. And you know what? Anyone who's just starting out might do the same thing. So you just put things out there and test and see what gets traction, and take that and go with it.
So I'm going to be totally selfish. What type of posts have you found? This is for you, obviously, so it'll be different for each market. But are there specific posts or specific things that tend to bring in the patients that you actually want? Have you found something that's specific?
So behind the scenes stuff and Instagram stories is great, because I could kind of show how my process of doing things is different. Or I'm also giving insight into the procedures that I'm actually doing, the behind the scenes that people, even patients, don't really see or understand when they hear like, oh, I need a crown. They might know they need a crown. And sometimes they might think like, well, why is a crown so expensive? But when you start showing them the process of it and what actually goes into it, it starts to make sense for them. So for me, behind the scenes is really helpful. And also like stories. I have a makeover Monday every Monday that I post. And I spend a lot of time like crafting those to either tell a story or to educate like what the procedure is, and kind of in a way that I feel makes me stand out. So what makes somebody else stand out will be different than what makes me stand out. And I kind of take like the skills that I have and use them in my marketing of how I do my treatments, so people can see like, okay, like I do see that she does it this way, or I like that she does it this way. And hey, I'm not for everyone. Some people might hate the way I do things, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not my ideal patient. But then the ones that do, you know, one thing about that education portion of it is that it totally changed my consults. So before, when I would do consults, it was always like, oh, are you really the dentist? You look too young. Or like, are you like, when did you graduate? You know, so it was always like, they didn't really know anything about me. They didn't see much of my work except like a book, a before and after book that I had that I would show them. And, you know, it was more of me trying to sell myself. Whereas now my consults are so effective because patients have already done their research. And this is more for like everyone else that wants to start. So think of this, because now during my consults, they actually want to sign up when they come in for a consult. They just want to know how. And when I get to the point of, I'm like, okay, so do you want to see some photos of cases like yours? They're like, no, I've already seen everything. And you're like, okay, well, I'm happy to show them to you. Like, I have all these photos, like,
right.
Let me show, you know, and you're like, let me show them. And they're kind of like, no, I've seen it all. I just wanted to know how much it is and like what steps I need to take and like blah, blah, blah. And you're kind of like, okay, that was like really easy. It basically takes all that work out. And then you spend that consult basically understanding what it is that they want, what it is that they like, and if you can get them to their goals. And if they have realistic or unrealistic expectations that you can talk to them about. So those are the highlights. As far as what I would have done differently, good question.
I love this. These are my favorites.
Yeah. Business wise, I mean, I feel like you just have to know that as a dentist, you just don't have the business skills. Even when you think you do, get as much help as you can. I mean, I felt like I had help and I still feel like I could have done better. Or I felt like I was also like shy to ask for certain people's help too. And I should have never done that. I should have just been like, hey, I have this idea. I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And I was just wondering if I could talk to you about it. And if you think it's a good idea. So I think, know if you decide that you want to partner with somebody, like know who that person is.
Know them better than your spouse, about. Right?
Yeah, because it's really, truly like a marriage. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a flaw I had as well, is because I was an associate there, I thought like, oh yeah, I know this person. But I really didn't. Like, I was an associate there 5 days a week. I was there 1 to 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. And that's not a lot. And so you don't see everything and you don't see all the behind the scenes stuff. And so once I actually was there every day, I was like, oh my God, this is such a different person than I realized. And
Dang,
so
I think we all have, I think everyone has a story similar to yours. So you're not alone. I had that moment. I think we all do. And that's called the School of Hard Knocks. And what do you do with that? But I do agree. Get to know if you're going to partner. Make sure you really, really know. And chiming in on that, my thoughts of don't assume anything that it's going to be peaches and cream. Like really, really work through those, because when you can have those conversations at the beginning, I always say plan the divorce from the first conversation. Like, what is that going to look like if this doesn't work out the way we're hoping? Because then the worst case scenario instead of having it happen while you're on your honeymoon. It's fantastic.
Right. And, in a sense, it's almost like that person chose to do it that way. And meanwhile, like here I am, like getting married and then going on my honey, like not even thinking that this is even something ever in the future. And then it's like, I was on my honeymoon. She never even told me. What happened is she sent an email to all the patients and then somebody forwarded that email to me. And I was like, are you kidding me? And immediately
there's no undo button. No undo on that one. That's out there.
It was like, what? And then I'm on an airplane. So it's like, oh my God, now my staff thinks that they don't have a job. And then deep down, I'm like, but do they have a job? Like, how can I make this work? You know what I mean? So just know, like, you can never be too cautious. There's no stupid question. There's no reason to be shy. You should research what I would have done differently now, let's say going into it, is instead of choosing one accountant and one attorney and having them look over things, I would have paid 3 different people, 3 different accountants that don't know each other, 3 different attorneys. It might seem like a lot more money up front, but I would have spent the money then and had 3 different people from 3 different fields analyze everything and then come back to me and like take and figure out what was going on. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, like, you want things to happen so quickly and you're kind of like, okay, and you don't really know, and you trust that the person you're partnering with is a good person, and you trust that like the things that you would never do to somebody that they wouldn't do to you.
Of course.
And you just think like everyone's like you, and you're like, why would somebody ever do that? And then when it flips, you're like, oh my God, like
there's a whole different world.
Yeah, there's a whole different world that you were not prepared for. So
that's good advice. Do your and I wanted to circle back, because I think for teams and for doctors, when you said don't be shy, ask for the advice. I came to you. You are a social media guru. You do this. I don't. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm not going to sit here and get on a podcast and be like, okay, guys, I've got the social media figured out. No, I'm going to go ask the questions to the person who knows it. They say, find the expert who's doing it really, really well and ask them. And it's crazy. I don't know, Desiree, how your experience has been, but I feel very fortunate that anytime, I shouldn't say anytime, there are some people that don't want to share, but for the bulk, most people will tell you. They'll give you a starting place. They'll offer you advice. They'll help you get started. They'll point you in a direction. You just have to be willing to ask that first question.
Totally. And people want to help. It's and you would be amazed how much free advice is even out there. Even like when you think about, let's say we're recording this podcast 4 years ago, there probably weren't that many podcasts. But if you search podcasts now, there's like thousands and thousands of them. Like there's so much free information out there. People just want to give free information and good information. So ask for help. It's always good to ask for help.
Oh, I love it. So you guys, this is Desiree. She is amazing. And get ready. I'm totally going to just like spoiler alert. Can I talk about like what's coming up, what we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to share in case she hasn't, but she's going to actually start her own podcast, and we've been like mulling around names. So we're kind of thinking, she came up with this. I can't contribute to this. I just think it's brilliant. But social dentist is kind of what she's thinking. So if you guys have other ideas, you want to throw them out, because the reality is she is a guru in the social media industry. She's done this. She's built a practice on it. She's the expert in this field. So I hope you guys took a lot of notes. I hope you look for her. She's going to be fantastic. Look her up. She's on Instagram, Dr. Yazdan, correct? That's your Instagram name?
Yeah. And you know what? I even have a free Instagram guide, like specifically for healthcare professionals, that they can download. So if you guys want to go to dryazdan.com/Instagram guide, you'll get a link to a free Instagram guide, and it'll help you with like some captions and like a few things that you could do every day to like be consistent and get your account going. So that way, and you could even use them for Facebook or other social platforms. I just prefer Instagram. It's my favorite.
I love that. So you guys, seriously, go download this. This woman is incredible. I love your vibe. I love the things you've shared.
Thank you.
So guys, take notes. We talked about showing up every single day. She just told you, go to dryazdan.com/Instagram guide. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We'll also have that in the show notes so you guys can find that. Make sure you're speaking to your avatar, your Olivia. She also talked about making sure your profile is totally set. People show up to your page. They know exactly who you are, what you do in a short 8 to 10 seconds. And then also the things of what not to do. Make sure you really know your business partners, know the people you're going into. I think this can apply to hiring. It can apply to partnerships. You name it. Like, this is life 101. And then also, Don't be afraid. Go to the experts in the field. Ask them these questions. Don't be afraid to ask, because I think when you're able to be humble and say, hey, I don't know, people, it's crazy. They just like pour out of their souls all their information because they want to help you out. So don't be afraid of that. And honestly, guys, Desiree, thank you so much for taking time because I feel this is one of the best podcasts. You guys know social media is not my jam. So to have experts come on, I'm so grateful you took the time. I know you're expecting your baby. You just got done with a busy day of work. So to take time to come on this podcast, I really appreciate it. Yeah.
See, people are always happy to help, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So this is Dr. Desiree Yazdan, guys. Check her Instagram out. Watch her page. She didn't mention this, but I'll give the spoiler from Philly. She said, have your place be someplace like Starbucks where people want to show up, hang out, really just stay on your page for a long time because it's comfortable. It feels good. And that's what I believe her page has done. So great ideas on her page. Go check her out. She's fantastic. And Dr. Desiree, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to chat again.
Absolutely. All right, Dental A Team listeners, thanks for catching us, and we'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.